My daughter-in-law called me the old woman for 10 years. She said it at Christmas dinners, at birthday parties, in front of my own grandchildren. I smiled every time because my son begged me to. Last December, I stood in my kitchen holding a coffee cup that had gone cold, and I heard her voice on speakerphone from the next room. She told her sister they were just waiting it out until I went into a home so they could finally breathe. I set the cup down very carefully. I did not cry. I picked up the phone and called my late husband's attorney. My name is Patricia. I am 64 years old. I was widowed at 58, and before that, I spent 31 years as a hospital administrator in a small white office on the third floor of St. Margaret's. I am telling you this because I want you to understand that I am not a dramatic woman. I balanced budgets. I signed payroll. I knew exactly how much a kindness costs and exactly how much a cruelty costs, and for 10 years, I let someone count on the fact that I would never put a price on either one. In 2018, my son Mark sat at my kitchen table and asked me for $200,000. He and Jenna had found a colonial in Westport. White shutters, blue door, a maple tree in the front yard that turned the color of a stoplight in October. Mark said it was the house he had pictured when he pictured being a father. I said yes before he finished the sentence. I think I said yes before he asked. My husband Daniel had been gone 6 months. The house felt like a held breath. Writing that check was the first thing in half a year that felt like motion. What Mark did not know, what Jenna definitely did not know, was that I did not just write a check. Daniel's attorney drew up a formal promissory note, secured against the colonial, with a demand clause. Daniel had drafted it years earlier, back when Mark was still in graduate school, and Daniel used to say, quietly, that Jenna had a way of looking at our house like she was already measuring the curtains. I signed the note on a Tuesday. I filed it on a Wednesday. Then I forgot about it for 10 years, the way you forget about a smoke alarm in the ceiling. The first time Jenna called me the old woman, it was at a barbecue, July. Their second summer in the colonial. I had brought a potato salad in a glass bowl my mother had given me in 1973. Jenna walked past me on the patio, balancing a tray of lemonade, and said over her shoulder to her sister, "Careful." The old woman brought her good bowl. Her sister laughed. Mark laughed. I laughed too, because what else do you do? I almost said something. I had the sentence in my mouth. Then my granddaughter Lily, who was 4, ran up and grabbed my leg and asked if I had brought the cookies with the little jam centers. I had. I always did. I knelt down and I said, "Yes, sweetheart," in the blue tin in the car. And the moment passed. That is how it happens, you know? The moment passes, and then it passes again. And then one day you are 64, and the moment has been passing for a decade. The Thanksgiving thing started in the second year. There were 11 of us, and Jenna said with a little apologetic frown that the dining room only really sat 8. She had set up a smaller table in the kitchen, very pretty, with the same china. She said it would be cozy. Then she put me there, with the children. I sat between Lily, who was 5, and Mark's nephew Cole, who was 3 and had been screaming since the cranberry sauce. I cut Cole's turkey into squares. I wiped gravy off Lily's chin. I could hear the adults laughing in the next room. I could hear Mark's voice. He did not come check on me. Not once. When I went to use the bathroom, I passed through the dining room, and Jenna looked up from her wine glass and said, "The old woman is doing such a good job with the kids." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. I have a very good laugh. I worked on it for years. I want to tell you about the closet thing because it is the one that still sits inside me at strange hours. Lily was 7. I had picked her up from school. We were in my car, and she was buckled into the back, kicking her sneakers against the seat. She said, "Grandma, Mommy says you smell like a closet." She said it the way children say things, with no weight on it, the same voice she would have used to tell me her teacher had a new sweater. I kept driving. I remember the light at the corner of Elm was red. I remember the radio was playing something with a piano. I remember thinking that the worst part was not what Jenna had said. The worst part was that she had said it to Lily. She had taught a 7-year-old girl to look at her grandmother and smell a closet. I did not say anything to Lily. I did not say anything to Mark. I went home and I opened my own closet and I stood there with my hand on Daniel's old wool coat. It still smelled like him. Cedar and a little bit of pipe tobacco from before he quit. I stood there for a long time. I think I was waiting to feel angry. I just felt tired. I should tell you that Mark loves me. I want to be fair. Mark loves me the way grown sons love their mothers when their wives do not, from a careful distance, with a tight voice on the phone, with visits that always end 10 minutes earlier than I expect. He would call me on Sunday afternoons and ask about my blood pressure and the gutters, and I would tell him everything was fine, and he would say, "I am glad, Mom," in a voice that meant, "Please do not say it is not fine." So I never did. There were good moments, too. I want you to know that. The Christmas lily was 9. Jenna handed me a small wrapped box, and inside was a silver bracelet with a little heart on it. She had picked it out herself. She hugged me. She called me Patricia, not the old woman. I wore that bracelet for 3 weeks straight. I slept in it. I thought, maybe this is the turn. Maybe she is softening. 2 weeks later, she sat me at the kids' table at Easter. I want to tell you about the morning everything changed because I want you to understand that I did not plan it. I want you to understand that I was making coffee. It was December 18th, a Tuesday. I had driven over to drop off the cookies in the blue tin because Lily, who was now 14 and taller than me, had a winter concert that night, and I had promised. Jenna's car was in the driveway. The front door was unlocked. I let myself in the way I always did, through the mudroom, and I set the tin on the kitchen island. The coffee maker was on. There was a mug already out. I thought, well, I am here. I will make myself a cup. I poured it. I added the milk. I was standing at the counter with the carton still in my hand when I heard Jenna's voice from the den. She was on speakerphone. I could tell because her sister's voice was tinny and small, coming out of the kitchen counter where Jenna had left her phone. Jenna did not know I was in the house. The mudroom door does not make noise. It never has. Her sister was asking about the holidays. Jenna said, "Oh, God, she is coming over on the 23rd. Then she said, "I swear to God, Allison, we are just waiting it out at this point." Her sister said, "Waiting what out?" Jenna said, "Her. We are waiting her out. The doctor says her blood pressure is not great. Mark thinks she will be in a home in 5 years, maybe sooner, and then we can finally breathe." I set the milk carton down. I remember that very clearly. I set it down on the counter next to the blue tin of cookies. I did not slam it. I did not drop it. I set it down the way you set down a glass when you are at someone else's house and you do not want to leave a ring. Then I picked up my coffee. I walked back out through the mudroom. I drove home. I sat in my driveway for 11 minutes with the engine off before I went inside. That night, I went to Lily's concert. I sat next to Mark. I clapped when she finished her solo. I told Jenna her hair looked nice. It did. She had gotten it done. The next morning, at 9 o'clock, I called Daniel's attorney. His name was Richard. He had drawn up the note 10 years earlier. He was 71 now and mostly retired, but he picked up on the second ring. I said, "Richard, I want to call the loan." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Patricia, are you sure?" I said, "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." He said it would take about 90 days. I said that was fine. I did not tell Mark. I did not tell Jenna. I went to Christmas at the Colonial on the 23rd. Jenna had set me at the kids' table again, even though Lily was 14 and Cole was 12, and there were no children anymore, just the two of them and me, eating off the smaller plates. I ate my turkey. I complimented the stuffing. I told Jenna her tree was beautiful. It was. The letter went out in February. Certified mail. Richard called me the morning Mark received it. He said Mark had called him in a panic. He said Mark had asked if there was any way to negotiate. Richard had said, "You will have to speak to your mother." Mark called me at 4:11 in the afternoon. I remember because I was folding laundry on my bed, and the clock on my dresser was the old kind with the flip numbers, and I watched the 1 turn to a 2 while the phone rang. I let it ring 4 times. Then I picked up. He said, "Mom, what is this? What is happening?" I said, "I am calling the loan, sweetheart. It is in the paperwork. You have 90 days to refinance or sell." He said, "Mom, we cannot refinance at these rates. We would be at 8%. That would crush us." "Mom, why?" I said, "Mark." I heard her, on December 18th, on the speakerphone. She said you were waiting me out. There was a very long silence. I could hear him breathing. I could hear, very faintly, Jenna's voice in the background asking what was wrong. He did not answer her. He just kept breathing into the phone. He said, "Mom, she did not mean it like that." I said, "Sweetheart, I know exactly how she meant it, and I love you." And the 90 days started on Monday. I hung up. They tried to refinance. They could not. The rates were what they were. They listed the Colonial in April. It sold in June to a young couple with a baby and a golden retriever. I drove past it once, in July, and the maple tree in the front yard was full and green, and someone had painted the blue door black. Mark did not speak to me for 4 months. Then in October, he called me on a Sunday afternoon and asked about my blood pressure and the gutters. I told him everything was fine. He said, "I am glad, Mom." His voice was tight. We did not talk about it. We have not talked about it since. Jenna has never called me, not once. But I sent her a card in March after the house sold. A thank you card. Cream-colored with a sprig of lavender on the front. Inside I wrote, "Jenna, thank you for the clarity." Patricia. I did not sign it, the old woman. I thought about it. I almost did. But in the end, I just signed it Patricia because that is my name, and it always has been, and 10 years is a long time to forget that. I still have the silver bracelet with the little heart on it. It is in the top drawer of my dresser, next to Daniel's wedding ring. I do not wear it anymore, but I do not throw it out either. Some things you keep, not because they meant what you thought they meant, but because you want to remember what it felt like, for 2 weeks in December, to believe that someone had finally seen you. I make my coffee every morning at the same counter. I use the milk carton. I set it down carefully. I do not leave a ring.